Hi friends, today for math we're going to keep practicing our telling time. Yesterday we told time to the hour and today we're going to tell time to the half hour. Just like yesterday, we're going to look at two different kinds of clocks. First we'll look at what's called the digital clock, where the numbers are listed with the dots in the middle, and then we'll take a look at our analog clock together. For today's activity, you're going to be matching digital clocks to analog clocks, so it's important that you know how to tell time on both. Yesterday when we told time, we used the words o'clock every time we read the clock. Today it's going to be a little bit different. Today we're going to be telling time, and at the end, I'll get my dots ready for us. At the end, instead of a 00 like yesterday, today we're going to see this number. What's this number? Very good, 30. Today we're going to see a 30, and at the end of every time we're going to be saying 30. Here are a few examples of what this might look like on a digital clock. If I saw this on the digital clock, I would read this as 5:30. If I saw this time on the digital clock, I would read it as 7:30. Let me show you one more example. I'll let you try a few after that. If I saw this time on the digital clock, I would read this as 10:30. Now you try one. If you saw this time on the digital clock, how would you read it? Very good. You would read it as 2:30. I'll have you try one more. What is this time on the digital clock? Go ahead and say it out loud. Excellent. Yes, this time would be 4:30. Awesome. Now let's take a look at our analog clock. Just like yesterday, the analog clock is a little bit trickier than the digital clock because we're going to be looking at the clock hands. Yesterday we talked a little bit about the two different hands on the clock, but I'll go over it one more time today since this is new. The red hand, the shorter hand on our analog clock, is the hour hand. It tells us what the hour is. And the purple hand, the longer hand on our analog clock, is the minute hand. We read the hour hand first, and then we read the minute hand. Yesterday, our purple hand was always pointed towards the top where the 12 is on the clock, or our imaginary 0, and this is when we read it as o'clock. But today we're going to be moving that purple hand because we're going to be reading all the 30 times, just like we did with the digital clock. So the purple numbers on our analog clock show us what the minutes are. So let's count by fives until we get to 30 so I know where I'm going to be pointing the minute hand today. Let's start with 0. 0, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. So our minute hand today is always going to be pointed at the 6, which we know is our 30 if it was minutes since we counted by fives there. Awesome. Now our hour hand is going to be the hand that moves because we're going to be changing the hour today. Let me show you a few examples. And remember, the hour hand isn't always going to touch the number, but we have to pretend there's kind of an imaginary line that touches the number. If I wanted to read this time on the analog clock, I would read this as 2:30. If I wanted to read this time on the analog clock, I would read this as 5:30. If I wanted to read this time on the analog clock, I would read it as 9:30. Now you try one. I'm going to set it up and I'm going to have you read it out loud for me. What time is showing on the analog clock? Awesome. This time, you're right, is 7:30. What can be tricky is you might have noticed that my hour hand isn't pointing directly at a number. It's going to be kind of halfway in between since we're halfway around the circle at the 30. But we're always going to pick the one it's closest to. So I'm drawing that imaginary line and I'm dragging my finger backwards to find the number here. Let's have you practice one more. I'm going to try to make it a little trickier here. What is the time on the clock now? Excellent. We have 11:30. Awesome. For today's activity, you're going to be reading times that'll have a 30 at the end. You're going to notice all of the analog clocks today are pointing at that 6, and you're going to be matching them to the digital time.